In the small town of Lusaka Ridge, the rain started like a warning and then turned cruel. Thunder cracked the sky as 13-year-old Amara Njeri stood shaking inside her own home. Her older sister, Zawadi, the favorite, the golden child, pointed at her and said the money was gone because of Amara. Amara tried to speak. Her voice came out small. She said she didn't take anything. She begged them to check again. But her parents didn't listen. They never did when Zawadi spoke first. Her mother's face was hard, her father's eyes cold with anger. Before Amara could understand what was happening, her arm was pulled. The door flew open. Rain slapped her face. The wind pushed her back. She cried and held the doorframe, asking for one chance, just one chance to be believed. Her words drowned in the storm. Her father pushed her outside. The gate slammed shut. The lock clicked. That sound broke something inside her. Barefoot, soaked, and shaking, Amara stood there as rain ran down her hair and into her eyes. Thunder roared above her, louder than her sobs. She knocked on the gate again and again, calling her parents, calling her mother. No one came. No light turned on. The house went quiet, like she had never existed. In that moment, Amara understood the truth. This was not discipline. This was not anger that would pass by morning. This was rejection. Her own home had chosen a lie over her life. And in the middle of that storm, a 13-year-old girl realized she was completely alone. Amara didn't know where to go. The gate behind her stayed silent, and the house that was supposed to protect her disappeared into the rain. She took one small step, then another. The road was dark and muddy, and every step hurt because she had no shoes. Stones cut her feet, but she didn't stop. The storm was too loud, too angry, and she was too scared to stand still. Rain soaked her thin clothes until they felt heavy on her body. Her hair stuck to her face. Her teeth kept shaking, not just from the cold, but from fear. Every sound made her jump. Thunder felt like the sky was shouting at her. She hugged herself and walked, not knowing if she was moving towards safety or deeper into danger. Cars passed by, their headlights flashing for just a second. Amara raised her hand once, then twice. She wanted to scream for help, but her throat felt tight. No car slowed down. No window opened. The water from their tires splashed her, and they disappeared into the dark, leaving her smaller and more invisible than before. Her legs grew weak. Each step felt harder than the last. She kept thinking maybe her parents would come after her. Maybe they would realize the mistake. Maybe the gate would open. But every minute passed, and nothing changed. The storm didn't stop, and neither did the silence from home. She finally reached an old bus stop at the edge of the road. It was broken and rusty, barely standing. Amara crawled under it and collapsed on the wet ground. Her body couldn't hold her anymore. She cried the way only a child cries, quiet at first, then with shaking breaths, then with sounds she couldn't control. She pulled her knees to her chest and whispered prayers she barely remembered. She asked God what she had done wrong. She asked why telling the truth wasn't enough. She asked if she was really that easy to throw away. Rain kept dripping through the roof, falling onto her hands, her face, her tears mixing with water. Amara was only 13. She had never been out alone at night. She had never felt fear like this. She wasn't a bad child. She didn't steal. She didn't lie. All she wanted was to be believed. But instead, she was sitting in the dark, shaking, cold, and unwanted. People say parents are a child's first safe place. That night, Amara learned the opposite. The ones who should have protected her were the ones who pushed her into the storm. Her small, innocent heart kept hoping someone would see her, someone would care, someone would stop. But for now, there was only rain, a broken bus stop, and a little girl whispering prayers into the night, hoping the world would be kinder than her own family. The rain was still falling hard when a soft glow of headlights appeared on the road. Amara lifted her head slowly. Another car. She didn't move this time. She was too tired to hope, too cold to stand. She just sat there under the broken bus stop, hugging her knees, her small body shaking as water dripped from the roof onto her hair. Then something different happened. The car slowed down. Amara heard the sound of tires on wet ground, gentle, careful. A large black SUV stopped a few steps away from her. The engine stayed on, quiet but steady, like a heartbeat in the storm. For a moment, nothing happened. Amara felt fear rise again. She thought about running, but her legs refused to move. The back door opened. A woman stepped out, holding an umbrella. She was tall, well-dressed, and calm, even in the storm. Her eyes landed on Amara, and something in her face changed.
Shock, pain, worry.
This was Mama Safina Dlamini, a respected businesswoman from Nyota Valley, known for her power, but also for her soft heart. She didn't shout. She didn't ask harsh questions. She walked closer, slowly, like she didn't want to scare her. When she saw the cuts on Amara's feet, the bruises on her arms, and the fear written on her face, Mama Safina's breath caught. "My child," she whispered. Amara tried to stand but slipped in the mud. Mama Safina dropped the umbrella and caught her before she fell. Without thinking, she took off her warm coat and wrapped it around Amara's thin, shaking body. The coat smelled clean and safe. It felt like protection. Mama Safina didn't ask where her parents were. She didn't ask what she had done wrong. She only asked one thing, softly, close to her ear. "Are you hurt?" That question broke Amara. She started crying again, but this time she wasn't alone. Mama Safina held her, shielding her from the rain, her arms firm and warm. For the first time that night, someone didn't look at Amara like a problem. Someone looked at her like a child who needed help. Mama Safina guided her into the car. The door closed, cutting off the storm. Warm air filled the space. Amara's body slowly stopped shaking. She clutched the coat tightly, afraid this kindness might disappear if she let go. As the SUV drove away from Lusaka Ridge, Mama Safina glanced at the girl beside her. She didn't know her name yet. She didn't know her story. But in her heart, a quiet decision had already been made. Stopping that night was not an accident. It was fate. And in the silence of that moving car, while rain washed the roads behind them, a small, abandoned girl was unknowingly leaving her old life behind and stepping into a future that would change everything. Amara woke up slowly, confused by the silence. There was no thunder, no rain hitting her face, no cold ground beneath her. Instead, she felt warmth, soft blankets wrapped around her body. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. She opened her eyes carefully, afraid the storm would come back. The room was big and bright. Sunlight slipped through long curtains. The bed beneath her was wide and clean, nothing like the hard floor she had slept on before. Amara sat up quickly, her heart racing. She looked at her hands, still wrapped in the warm coat from the night before. Everything felt unreal, like she had stepped into someone else's life. The door opened gently. A woman entered with a kind smile, holding a tray of food. She spoke softly, asking if Amara was awake and if she was hungry. No one had ever asked her that so gently. Amara nodded, unsure, watching every move closely. The woman placed the tray near her and left without rushing her, without staring, without judging. The smell of food filled the room. Warm bread,
Soup, fruit.
Amara stared at it for a long time before touching it. At home, food often came with shouting or blame. Here, it was just given. She ate slowly, each bite making her eyes sting with tears she didn't understand. As she finished, Mama Safina walked in. She sat across from Amara, not above her, not far away, just close enough to feel safe. Her voice was calm, steady. She asked Amara her name, then her age, then she waited. Amara's words came out in pieces at first. The accusation, the storm, the locked gate, her sister's lie. Mama Safina didn't interrupt. She didn't look away. Her face changed as the story went on, but she stayed quiet, letting Amara speak until there was nothing left to say. When Amara finally stopped, her hands were shaking. She waited for anger, for doubt, for blame. None came. Mama Safina reached out and held her hands gently. "You did not deserve that," she said. Her voice didn't shake, but something strong lived inside it. "No child deserves that." For the first time, someone said it out loud. That day passed softly. Servants spoke kindly. No one raised their voice. No one called her useless or troublesome. When Amara walked through the halls, people smiled at her like she belonged there. As night fell, Mama Safina stood by Amara's door and watched her settle into bed again. She saw a scared child pretending to be brave. In her heart, a quiet promise formed. This child would never be left in the storm again. Not under her watch. Back in Lusaka Ridge, life moved on as if Amara had never existed. Her name stopped being spoken. Her shoes were moved out of sight. Her bed was cleared and used for storage. When neighbors asked about her, her mother simply said, "She ran away." And that was enough. No one questioned it. No one searched. Zawadi walked through the house with her head held high, enjoying the quiet victory of her lie. Zawadi was praised more than ever. Her parents trusted her completely now. They called her responsible, honest, the good daughter. She wore new clothes. She laughed freely. At night, she slept peacefully, never once looking toward the gate that had closed on her sister. The lie wrapped around her like comfort, warm and safe for now. Far away in Nyota Valley, Amara's life was taking a very different shape. Mama Safina kept her word. Within weeks, Amara was enrolled in a private school where teachers spoke kindly and classmates didn't shout her down. On her first day, she held her bag tightly, expecting someone to accuse her, to push her, to shame her. But none of that happened. She also began therapy. At first, she barely spoke. She sat quietly, her eyes fixed on the floor. But slowly, the words came. The fear. The nights she woke up shaking. The sound of the gate locking. Each session peeled away a little of the pain. She learned that being abandoned was not her fault, that telling the truth was not a crime. At home, she was treated with dignity. Her room was hers. Her voice mattered. If she said no, it was respected. If she cried, someone listened. Mama Safina didn't spoil her with money. She gave her something far more powerful, stability and belief. Months turned into years. Back in Lusaka Ridge, the lie began to age. Zawadi grew used to attention and careless with truth. The family's money slowly slipped away. Arguments replaced praise. But the lie still stood, fragile and proud. In Nyota Valley, truth was growing quietly. Amara studied. She healed.
She learned confidence step by step.
No one spoke of revenge. No one planned payback. But life was already doing the work. Because lies don't build futures. They only borrow time. And while Zawadi lived on borrowed comfort, Amara was building something real, strong, patient, and unstoppable. Time did what pain could not. It changed Amara. The scared, shaking girl slowly faded into memory, replaced by a young woman who walked with calm confidence. Years passed in Nyota Valley, and with every year, Amara grew stronger. Not loud, not proud, just steady. The kind of strength that doesn't need to prove anything. School became her safe place. She studied hard, not because she was forced, but because she wanted more from life. Her teachers noticed her sharp mind. Numbers made sense to her. Ideas came easily. She asked thoughtful questions and listened carefully. Mama Safina watched all of this quietly, guiding her like a mentor, not a boss. After school, Mama Safina would sit with Amara and talk about business, leadership, and responsibility. She didn't just teach her how to make money. She taught her how to make decisions, how to stand tall in difficult rooms, how to stay kind without becoming weak. Amara learned that power didn't need shouting. Real power stayed calm. The girl who once cried under a broken bus stop now stood in boardrooms, speaking clearly, confidently. People listened, not because of her past, but because of her presence. She dressed simply, carried herself with grace, and never looked down on anyone. Pain had taught her humility, not bitterness. Meanwhile, in Lusaka Ridge, life was falling apart. Amara's parents struggled to keep up. Bills piled up. Arguments became routine. The house that once felt full now felt heavy. Zawadi, no longer the shining star, faced the pressure she had never known. The comfort built on her lie was cracking. No one there knew where Amara was. No one imagined the abandoned child had become someone important. They remembered her only as a problem that disappeared. But in Nyota Valley, Amara was becoming known, not as a victim, not as a charity case, but as a rising star. A young woman with vision, discipline, and quiet authority. People trusted her. They respected her opinions. Opportunities opened naturally around her. Mama Safina looked at Amara with pride, not ownership. She had not replaced Amara's parents, she had given her a future. And Amara never forgot where she came from. She didn't chase revenge. She chased growth. And without trying, without planning it, Her success was already walking toward the people who once left her in the storm, slowly, silently, and powerfully. Years after that stormy night, a thin white envelope arrived at Mr. and Jerry's house in Lusaka Ridge. It looked expensive, the kind of letter that didn't come often anymore. He opened it slowly, his fingers rough and tired. Inside was an invitation to a grand charity gala in Nyota Valley, an event attended by powerful people, investors, and leaders. At the bottom of the page was the name of the host, a young, mysterious CEO everyone was talking about. Mr. and Jerry felt a strange mix of pride and fear. His life had shrunk over the years. Money problems never seemed to end. The house felt smaller, louder, full of regret he never spoke about. Still, an invitation like this felt important. It felt like a second chance. He decided to go, telling himself this could change things. The night of the event, Nyota Valley looked unreal to him. Lights shone everywhere. Expensive cars lined the entrance. Music floated through the air. Mr. and Jerry adjusted his jacket, feeling out of place but hopeful. He didn't know why his heart was beating so fast. Inside, people spoke softly but confidently. They laughed easily. Success surrounded him like a language he no longer spoke. He heard whispers about the host, young, brilliant, self-made, someone who had risen quietly but powerfully. Mr. and Jerry wondered what kind of life created someone like that. As he stood there, holding a glass he barely touched, something tugged at his chest. A strange feeling he couldn't explain. A memory he didn't want to face. For a brief second, the sound of rain echoed in his mind. A locked gate, a small voice crying. He shook his head and pushed the thought away. The lights dimmed slightly. The host was about to appear. The crowd turned toward the stage. Mr. and Jerry straightened, unaware that the past he buried years ago was about to stand right in front of him, alive, strong, and unrecognizable. He had come looking for opportunity. Instead, fate had invited him, and the child he once left in the storm was about to walk back into his life, not as a daughter begging to be believed, but as a woman the world now listened to. The room grew quiet as the lights focused on the stage. Soft music faded, and the crowd turned forward with interest. A young woman stepped out from behind the curtain, calm and confident. She walked slowly, not rushed, not nervous. Every step felt steady, like she knew exactly where she belonged. Mr. and Jerry looked up casually at first. Then his body froze. Something about her face pulled him in. Her eyes. He had seen those eyes before, wide, deep, and honest. His chest tightened. He told himself it was nothing, just a coincidence. But when she spoke, his heart nearly stopped. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and warm. "Welcome to tonight's charity event." That voice. His hands began to shake. Years disappeared in a single second. The rain, the thunder. A small girl standing barefoot outside a gate, crying his name. Mr. and Jerry's breathing grew heavy. He gripped the edge of the table, trying to stay upright. This couldn't be real. It wasn't possible. The woman on stage smiled gently at the audience. "My name is Amara and Jerry." The glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. People turned, startled by the sound, but Mr. and Jerry didn't notice. His mind was screaming. Amara. That name had been buried deep, locked away with guilt and shame. He had convinced himself she was gone, that she had disappeared, that life had moved on. But there she was. Not broken, not lost, powerful. His eyes filled with tears as he studied her face more closely. The same nose, the same quiet strength. Even the way she held her hands when she spoke, it was her, his daughter, the child he had pushed into the storm without listening. Amara continued speaking, unaware, or pretending to be unaware, of the storm she had just awakened inside one man. She spoke about kindness, about second chances, about how one decision can change a life forever. Each word felt like it was landing directly on his chest. Mr. and Jerry felt sick. He remembered how small she had looked that night, how he had turned his back, how he had locked the gate and walked away. His hands trembled harder now, his face pale. The success standing before him was built on the pain he had caused. The hall applauded. People admired her confidence, her grace, her strength. Mr. and Jerry could barely breathe. The powerful woman everyone respected was not a stranger. She was the daughter he abandoned. And in that moment, standing in a room full of light and applause, he realized the truth that would haunt him forever. The child he left to die in the rain had not only survived, she had risen far beyond him. The applause slowly faded, and Amara stood quietly on the stage. She took a small breath, letting the room settle. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried years of truth. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle, not angry, not shaking. "Tonight is not just about charity," she said. "It's about honesty." The room leaned in. She didn't point at anyone. She didn't raise her voice. She simply began telling her story. She spoke about being 13, about a stormy night, about being accused of something she didn't do. She described standing barefoot in the rain, knocking on a locked gate, calling for her parents until her voice disappeared into thunder. Every word landed heavily. Mr. and Jerry sat frozen, his face drained of color. His wife stared at the stage, her lips trembling. They knew the story. They had lived it. They had buried it. And now it was standing in front of them, clear and unchangeable. Amara spoke about the lie. She didn't say her sister's name at first. She explained how one false accusation can destroy a child, how silence can be louder than cruelty. Then she paused just for a moment. "My sister accused me," she said calmly, "and my parents believed her." A wave of whispers moved through the hall. Zawadi's head dropped. Her hands clenched tightly in her lap. The lie that once protected her now felt too heavy to carry. Faces turned toward her, then toward her parents. Questions filled the room, without a single word being asked. Amara continued, her posture straight, her heart steady. She spoke about survival, about kindness from a stranger, about healing. Not once did she insult them. Not once did she ask for pity. She spoke like someone who had already won peace. "I don't share this story for revenge," she said. "I share it because truth matters." That was when the shame truly arrived. Not shouted, not forced. It settled quietly on her parents' shoulders. The respect they had hoped to gain from this event slipped away. The town's elite didn't see them as guests anymore. They saw them as people who had failed their own child. Amara stood there, strong and unbroken. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply existed as proof that lies can run for years, but truth always catches up. The hall was silent when she finished. And in that silence, one thing was clear to everyone. The lie had collapsed, and Amara had risen above it without a single drop of bitterness. The event ended quietly. People spoke in low voices, and the lights slowly dimmed. Amara stepped down from the stage, her heart steady, her steps calm. There was no anger inside her. No need to prove anything anymore. She had said her truth, and that was enough. Mama Safina met her backstage and held her hand with pride. Around them were people who respected Amara, who admired her strength and her journey. She was surrounded by warmth, by love she had earned and kindness she had been given. This was her life now, built on truth, not lies. Across the hall, her parents stood still, unsure of where to look. The applause had ended, but the weight of their choices had just begun. Mr. and Jerry felt smaller than he ever had. The image of his daughter standing strong burned in his mind. He finally understood what they had lost, not just a child, but a future filled with honesty and light. They wanted to speak to her, to explain, to apologize. But some moments come too late. Some doors, once locked, never open the same way again. Amara chose forgiveness in her heart, because carrying hate would only hurt her. But she did not return to the past. Forgiving did not mean going back. It meant letting go and moving forward. As she walked away that night, she didn't look back at Lusaka Ridge or the gate that once closed on her. She looked ahead, to Nyota Valley, to purpose, to a life she had built with patience and courage. Her parents left the hall broken, finally aware that they had thrown away a diamond for a lie. No punishment could hurt more than that realization. And the lesson was clear, written quietly between every step Amara took. Kindness saves lives. Lies destroy families. And karma doesn't need to shout to be heard. It arrives right on time.